Okay. It says you are now live. That's what it's that's what it tells me. Okay.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay. All right. Cool. Cool. All right. Thank y'all much. I see. We're gonna give a little time. We had a little behind the scenes thing going on right now. We said we had to wait for all the devastation conversation information we had and kind of save it for for the rest of everybody else. You know what I'm saying? So it is 9 p.m. You know what I'm saying? And we have the good. We got my man Michael Khan Armstrong here. You know what I'm saying? And another, as y'all know, the Polka Dot Rabbit podcast. You know what I'm saying? I try my best to bring elevated beings. You know what I'm saying? To the podcast to give excellent information. And best believe I did not fall short with this cat right here. Please know that. Yeah, what I'm saying. Don't what they say. Don't judge a book by its cover, right? You know what I'm saying. And we're gonna show you that right now. Best believe. So let me go ahead and start my intro. As you all know, please go to polka.rabbitpodcast.com. Let me get my other thing up here going. There we go. Polka.rabbitpodcast.com. And please check out my book, Bicultural Living and Leaving the World of Illusions. In my journey on finding myself as being a quote unquote, as they like to say, a black man in America, amongst other things, physically, spiritually, all the above. You know, the Polka Dot Rabbit podcast, we are here specifically to uplift humanity, in addition to reawaken or awaken the melanated, woolly haired zombies that have been asleep for a very long time and are starting to wake back up. You know, and believe me, anybody that can uplift humanity or uplift anybody to up, raise the vibrations of this planet and the mindset, believe you, we are on the same team. Okay. So if you are out there, please like the Michael Khan Armstrong, like the Polka Dot Rabbit podcast. Please follow and share all that good stuff. Press the like button. You know what I'm saying? Follow, share, all that good stuff. And as like I always say, I'm going to shut up now, and I'm going to let my man Mike go ahead and introduce himself, and then we're going to you know, do our thing after that. But go ahead, Mike.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Yeah, to introduce myself, I do a lot of things. I'm a filmmaker and a storyteller. I'm also a leadership coach. Went to film school and pursued a path of making movies for a long time. I lived in LA and was doing the Hollywood game for a few years and decided that wasn't my thing. And then moved to the Bay Area and started pursuing making these documentaries and exploring consciousness. And that led me to meet my dear friend Mark England, who's a mutual friend of ours. And yeah, it sort of started me on this quest of learning about personal development and getting to the truth of reality, I guess is one way to put it. Exploring into realms of like psychedelics and martial arts and all these different things. And during the pandemic, my work started shifting a lot, and my fiance is a leadership coach, and we started making these programs together. And so my work lately has shifted a lot more into this personal development realm and helping people to find these deeper keys for unlocking their power, unlocking their truest self, like finding what their calling is, and doing this story coaching, which I also learned from Mark England, but which I bring my own kind of unique flair into it. And yeah, I guess, and one more thing to say about myself is my parents are both storytellers too. My mom was a Shakespeare theater director for 25 years, and my dad helped her with the plays. And so there's this element of that comes in my background, and we can get into some esoteric stuff about Shakespeare too, and that might be interesting to explore. But yeah, that's kind of a little bit about me.
Shakespeare made the Bible, so he has to be esoteric. So that's people. I don't know if people know that, but yes, indeed, he sure did. But cool, cool, cool. So let's do this. Let's talk about your documentary. Um, yeah, let's. Why did you start what's the motivation behind the documentary? You know what I'm saying? Like, why did you want to? What was the motivation behind the documentary? Like, and why did you make it happen?
Yeah, good question. The first one I made, I started making it. I when I went to film school, went to LA and had went to USC film school, and I was like, I'm gonna be Steven Spielberg. I was like, I want to go and like do like climb up the Hollywood ladder and like do that thing. And by the end of 4 years of film school, I was so done with it because I started to see like how much I thought I was going to art school, and I realized I was going to like a producing school that was cranking out employees for the studio world, for this like Hollywood machine. And instead of finishing my last semester, I made a deal with my parents, left school, and they gave me some of the money that they would have helped me with school, to just a little bit of cash to go and make this documentary. And so I went around and started exploring like all this stuff that was really interesting to me, because like the whole time I was in school, I was like really fed up with the curriculum, and I started exploring all this stuff. I sort of created my own curriculum. I was like had some really powerful experiences with psychedelics, and like nobody around me was talking about it or like was saying anything about it. But then I was like finding these books that were like speaking to it, reading like Aldous Huxley and reading Carlos Castaneda. And that started to crack me open, and I was like, okay, I want to pursue this and like make a film about this. And it actually kind of got started with this martial arts teacher who I'm still connected to now. I'm helping him to like grow his work. And I cold emailed him. I found his book, and he was kind of like, he's in the same sort of lineage as Carlos Castaneda in a way. And I found his book and I read it, and it blew my mind. And then his email and website was in the back of the book. And I was like, whoa, this guy's like a teacher, like a real like magic like teacher. I was like, he's like a person. I cold emailed him and I was like, hey, can I interview you for this documentary that I'm working on? And he was like, yeah, you can interview me, but you got to come to Costa Rica and train with me. And the training starts next week, so like get a plane ticket. I was like, okay, it's happening. Like, let's do it.
on a Kill Bill tip, right?
Yeah, totally. So I flew to Costa Rica, and that first training session with him just completely changed my life. And I was like, man, this guy's the real deal. And then on that same
what style was it?
It's a very interesting form of martial arts, because I say he's part of the Carlos Castaneda lineage because he was trained by Don Juan. But a lot of his movement system was just in his body from a really young age. Like he just had martial arts movements like from when he was a kid, and then he's like developed it through practicing. And it's very fascinating because if you see it being done, it's like there's elements of like qigong and elements of bagua and tai chi and elements of kung fu. But it's like shifting. The thing that's so fascinating about it is like his system kind of evolves with his students. So I learned this windlock movement system with him in 2012, and then I went back in December to train with him, and it's completely different, and the moves are like all different. And I was like, whoa, like it's like as his body and the students like grow and evolve, like the movements like shift, And I was like, wow, like this is really fascinating. And that's something he said, that it was like he was like all of these different martial arts schools, they have like a seed of something in them, but they've become rigid over the millennia because like people, it's like there was some teacher who like downloaded or like somehow accessed like what the movements were. But then people try to codify it and like make it into a school, and then they're like make these rigid rules. But then people evolve and people change, and the movements are supposed to move with you, but they've kind of like stayed stuck like over the many generations.
That's really heavy. You said that, man, because like I'm in my second. I do Shotokan Karate. I'm in my second school right now, and I'm sitting there thinking, when I go to the second school, oh, it's going to be all the same. I'm literally, and come to find out, I walk in this to the dojo, and it's like everything's like all in Japanese, you know. And I'm just like, I mean, I heard the terminology before just throughout the years, but it was never like emphasized like this. You know what I'm saying? Not like this. So, and not only that, but all the moves are the same, but the sensei now was like focused more so on energy. You feel me? So
Yeah.
it's not, yeah. So it's I completely understand where you're coming from as a martial artist, but go ahead.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, and we can keep going about the documentary, but it's starting to get into jujitsu.
Mm,
Jujitsu is like really fascinating because it's the same way. And
mm,
it's jujitsu is an interesting one because with the striking martial arts, it's
mm.
hard you can't really like go 100% in practice.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like when if you're gonna do pro fighting, it's like it's still even if you're really in it, it's like you train and you train and then you have like one fight like a month,
Hmm.
and then you get all beat up and then you have to like recover. But with jujitsu, it's like you're going 100% like every day on the mat,
Hmm.
and so
Hmm.
it's like you're testing it. It's like every day it's like being tested,
Exactly.
and so the system evolves.
Yeah.
Like that's actually how Mark broke his arm. I don't know if he told you that story.
Oh,
But
really? In jiu-jitsu?
yeah, he went and did some jujitsu at a class, and he hadn't rolled for like years and years. And this guy got him in an arm bar, and he didn't recognize it because he was
Oh,
allergic.
he didn't go with it. He didn't go.
Yeah,
He tried
he
to
didn't think
resist.
he was gonna get it, and the guy had it, and he didn't tap, and he broke his arm. But anyway, yeah, like really interesting stuff about all that. But yeah, back to the documentary. On that same trip, I just had this like super like consciousness expanding journey. I met Mark on that same trip in Costa
Mm,
Rica, just like kind of by chance. I went to this music festival, and he was giving a lecture there. And I met all these like amazing people, and it just turned into this kind of like chain of just like connections and just following the threads. There was no plan. There was not like, it wasn't like I'm going to make a documentary about this. I was just like, this person is really interesting, and I'm going to follow like what they're doing. And I like went on this journey like that, and then I did probably like 30 interviews or something. And
mm,
then it was like all about all this different stuff. There was like permaculture things, and there was things about martial arts and psychedelics and like all these different like snippets. And I pared it down into this hour-long film, which was I think I only used like 6 of the interviews in the final film.
wow.
And it was interesting because I submitted it. I just made a trailer before the film was even done, and I submitted it to a festival to be screened in like the later that summer, and they accepted it just off of the trailer, and they were like, okay, here's the deadline, and it's got to be an hour because we only have an hour slot for you. And I was like, okay, deadline and like a time limit for the film. Great, I'm gonna like fit those constraints, which is really good. But then I ended up cutting a lot out. And then after that happened, my hard drive crashed and I lost all the footage. Which in retrospect, I think was a blessing because it was like, that was what it was. And I needed to just like kind of let go of all that stuff. Cause I was getting all caught up and like, oh, what do I do with it now? Like, how do I make it more? And, yeah, it was a really interesting process, man, because like I was really moved by all these people that I met, and I did my best job at editing it. But then like something happens, like, as an editor, like when you start to work on something and you get really deep in it, and especially a big project like that, and you're like spending months like in something, you kind of like lose track of like how good it is, that it's like, is it, you feel it, but then you're like, is this landing? Like, I don't know if other people are going to connect with this. And I thought I was like, I like this, but I think it's kind of weird. Like I was hesitant to like share it with people, And I screened it at this music festival. It's like an 8-day boom festival in Portugal. And it's like a psytrance music festival, and like lots. It was a really cool event with like lots of different areas, but it's main stage like psytrance stuff. And my film was a screening on the 5th day, and everybody's like dancing all night, and it's just like this huge party. And my film is screening at like 1 a.m. on the 5th day, and it gets screened, and all these people were there, but they were all like asleep on the floor. And I was like, oh fuck, nobody's watching. This is a flop, And then I like did a little Q&A afterwards, and like so a couple people asked questions, but it wasn't very engaged. And I was like, okay, like I guess that was kind of a dud. But then I was like, I have some DVDs up here. If anybody wants one, I'm giving them away. But if people want to like trade stuff, and suddenly like all these people like jump up and like sprint up, and they're like, oh, no. And they're like trading me stuff and like giving me weed and things for it, And I was like, wow, okay, it like connected. And then I published it on YouTube, and now it has like over 500,000 views, like just totally organic, like didn't like market it or anything.
Yeah.
And I have some friends who are like super obsessed with it. Like I know I have 2 friends in particular who have watched it. Both of them have probably watched it like 50 times. And one friend of mine, he had this like kind of nervous breakdown. Like he had this traumatic experience on LSD, and it sent him into sort of like schizophrenic, like paranoid spiral for like months. And he said he would watch my movie on loop in his room, and it would like take him down, like out of the psychosis, just like listening to the mantra of it, you know. And it was like, whoa, like, wow, I like tapped something like powerful with this, you know. And I was like, okay, like there's something here. And yeah, and so that kind of just sent me on a whole journey of like exploring all those things. And I published that film in 2012, and then in 2017 I started working on this follow-up, which is what I'm in the process of working on now. And I started to branch it into like actually being like, okay, I want to build this into a series and like go into these different subcategories in deeper ways. And you know, and the other part of it that has been, you know, that's been part of the inspiration for what's happening now is that, you know, I released this film and people loved it, but then I didn't, you know, there was one comment that really got me in the YouTube comments where this guy was like, he was like, this movie is so beautiful. And like all these people who are in the comments, it's like, you people seem amazing, but like, where are you? Like, I don't see you on the street. Like, how do I find you? You know? And I was like, oh man. And it really got me onto this like line of questioning of like how to create an experience to like catch the audience, to like let people like go deeper into like, into like other layers of experience, to like actually come and like, you know, connect, like be able to do Q&As with the speakers and things like that. And like be able to come and like do trainings and then eventually like retreats. And so it's like, this is all just kind of like, I've been thinking about it a long time, and it's like the momentum is just getting started on it. But it's like, you know, if the vision is sort of starting to unfold, and I'm like getting, you know, the teammates and the people are like appearing to make it happen. But yeah, that's kind of where I am now with it.
You know, and that's dope. First off, and you know, it's really interesting. You know, because we were talking earlier about you know, and obviously you just told the people you travel. You know, travel a lot. And Mark's the one that told me that only what 10% of Americans have passports, which makes perfect fucking sense if you ask me. You know what I'm saying? Dealing with most of the people mindset. You
Yeah.
know, but we're both world travelers. You know what I'm saying? And not even you know on a bragging tip, but it is what it is. You,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm gonna tell you something, man. And we were talking about this early, you know, before there. But when it comes to individuals, um, and it comes to people, regardless, I don't care what gender you are, what race, some of us just get it. You know what I mean? We get it. I don't know if it's you know these people are connected to source, whatever the case may be, but some of us get it. But I'm gonna kind of take this. I'm gonna kind of blend this with what you're saying earlier about the psychedelics and stuff because throughout my lifetime, a lot of the individuals that done psychedelics, you know what I'm saying? I think about the stone ape theory, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
and I connect that with traveling because, you know, you can have an individual that just read books all the time about, oh, you know, Panama looks like this, and they can tell you all about it, you know, but they've never
Yeah.
been there,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And I think in Masonry we call it what speculative and operative. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like either done it or you haven't done it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and in this life in this existence, you know, it's a consistent thing with individuals that have delved in the world of the psychedelics and traveled. And it's I swear to you, it's like, and you know this, it's like the same exact individuals. They're open-minded, they're
Mm-hmm.
you know, pride, ego, a lot of the stuff that people are trapped in, it's gone. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? They deal with self and they deal with, you know, upliftment. You know what I'm saying? Uplifting themselves, humanity, whatever the case may be. You
Yeah.
know, I I think that's for me just experiencing that that's what even connected us in all honesty. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Just because, you know, I've met your personality, your you know, inside your avatar before and you know and that personality has never had a specific avatar. You see what I'm saying? It's been different. You know what I'm saying? Not specifically, you know what I'm saying, but the energy behind it. You know,
Mm.
being wanting to learn, you know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
Humility, you know what I'm saying? Humility. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's the people that, like I said, just get it. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
Yeah.
Um, what was one of the most humbling aspects of the documentary?
Oh, good question. Yeah, I don't want to go into that. It's the most humbling aspect. I mean, well, one level is just like the way these people connected with it. you know,
Mhm.
like seeing how much people were moved by it. Because like after listen to my friend say that he watched it 50 times. I was like, you know more about this movie than I do, you know. It was just like, whoa, like okay, that's crazy. But I would say the other thing was like, it's been such a journey with this martial arts teacher of mine.
Mm.
You know, because I met him and like the power in his being was just like so palpable
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's had a lot of like health issues over the years, from various things happening to him. But he trains like 5 hours a day, and
Mm.
then like teaches his students for the other part of the day, and he just like eats raw food and like green juices and like that's it. And when I first went and trained with him, it was like the energy field in his space was just like vibrating in this like
Mhm.
totally different way, and it's just like whoa.
Mhm.
There's this feeling of like I'm entering this like magical other realm, like going
Mhm.
into his house. And from the first moment that we talked, like we talked on Skype before I went and actually met him, and I didn't even see his face. And we started talking, and he could just like read things about me immediately, just like from my voice. And he was like, this and this and this is happening, and like you're carrying like this and this. It's like, whoa, what the fuck? Like you're psychic. And
Magic.
yeah, totally. And like what I've come to realize about him, what he's described to me, what he just described to me recently is that, and I started to like feel this myself more too, is that like he, through the training, it's like, is this practice of becoming aware of the kinetic lines, the kinetic energy lines in your body.
Mhm.
So there's these acupuncture meridians and chakras and like this, there's
Mhm.
an energy system in the body.
Mhm.
But if you don't do a practice to activate it, then it'll be asleep, and it's not like giving you
Mhm.
information. And so
Mhm.
these kinds of systems, these martial arts, it's like it's for fighting and it's for like getting fit, but then it's also for like activating these energy systems in the
Mhm.
body.
Mhm.
And then when that becomes active, you become aware of like your own like subtle energy movements and your own subtle
Exactly.
stuff. And then you like
Exactly.
get quiet and like release your own bullshit. And then
Mhm.
when you get clear, then you can like feel somebody else really clearly.
Mhm.
And what he's describing is he was like, this is just our natural state of being.
Yeah.
We should be in.
Yeah.
But most people have this like kind of fog on them from all the programming and like traumas that happened from growing up.
Exactly.
And yeah, and so like at first meeting him, it was really hard, and he's really like was so deliberate about like dismissing any like attempts to like put him on a pedestal. Like there was this one moment I remember where like I was training with him, and I like had a dream about him the previous night. And I like came into class, and he like, at the beginning, he'd like ask everybody how they're doing, and he'd like kind of process the feelings like just through talking before like doing movements. And I started sharing about this dream, and I was like, oh yeah, I had this dream about you, and like this happened and that happened. And then I stopped, and then he just like looked at somebody else and completely ignored me, like nothing had happened. I was like, whoa, like what? Like what? That felt bad. Like why did that just happen? And then I like sat with it, and I realized like I was trying to hook him. I was trying to
Mhm.
into validating me. I was trying to get him to
Exactly.
say like, oh yeah, you had like a magic experience, and like yeah, I come
Mhm.
and visited you in your dream time or something like that. And I was trying to
Mhm.
like do this power thing to get him to like acknowledge me.
That ego, boy.
Yeah, which is like this victim stance, really, because it
Yeah.
was like I was seeing him as above me, and I was like, oh, I need
Mhm.
you to like
Mhm.
validate me so that I can feel more powerful. And it's been a long journey. It's been this journey of probably like it's like 10 years to get to this point where like now it really feels like he has this level of mastery with the movement systems that's just so beyond. And I feel like such a
Mhm.
beginner compared to him in that. But also like as human beings, it feels like we're equals, and I just feel like he's my friend now. you know
Mhm.
and it's been really fascinating because I'm actually helping him to like grow his business,
Of
and
course. Yeah.
using my film skills and like my marketing skills to do that. And it's this trip because I'm like, oh wow, now I'm helping you with like my area of mastery, and it's helping to like heal things in him through me like bringing that like support to
Exactly.
him. So it's become this like reciprocal thing. And
Mhm.
it's like wow, like it's just been such a crazy like sequence and turn of events with him. Yeah.
As long as you're receptive and you have enough insight to even see that that connection, what I mean? That says a lot about you. You know what I mean? Honestly, you know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people might not, we were talking about before when we first met, we were talking about Baba Kalindi and
Yeah.
how Baba Kalindi was talking about, he would break it down how like the mushrooms were actually a part of the martial arts, and
Mm-hmm.
for a longest time, I could be like, I used to be like, how in the Sam hell could those be connected? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But dealing with a different master now, not even dealing with actually taking the mushrooms, but dealing with a different a teacher now, I can completely see it because his focus is really, they might not call it chi or whatever
Mm.
the case may be,
Yeah.
but in that life force, like when in Shotokan, it's the ki, what I'm saying,
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
life force, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
um it might not be that aspect, but when it comes to the other level of energy, you know what I'm saying,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
sometimes like my first school was I'm telling you straight, Tongue Dojo in Atlanta, Georgia. you know Beautiful school, I love it to death, 10 out of 10, I love it. And because one of the main reasons is because it was a fight school, you know what I'm
Mm.
saying. It taught you how to be tough and
Yes.
endure anything,
Yeah.
literally, mentally, physically, whatever that comes at you. I remember one day we had a open gym session and we trained for 3 hours straight, right? And I really realized after that I can do anything.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
that's been put in my mind now, even today, that I could do anything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That training, that school, that put me on the road. But like I told you earlier, now this school is different because it's focused on energy, just like you were saying. So I'm looking at Shotokan Karate in a completely different aspect when I just thought it was one before.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Because it's a different teacher.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You
Totally.
know what I'm saying?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah,
But
man. That's
yeah.
okay. Yeah, it's super interesting about the mushrooms and the martial arts because I was saying
Hmm.
before we got on that I did this mushroom journey last night, and I
Yeah.
was really feeling like, in the past too, I've like, had experiences on the mushrooms, and like you just start, your body just starts moving, and if you
Hmm.
start listening to it, and you're like, okay, my body wants to move this way, and sometimes you start doing these like weird,
Hmm. Hmm.
and then it's like, whoa, you can feel like energy healing stuff start to just happen, like
Exactly.
and last night it was a trip because I like since I started getting into jujitsu, feeling like this experience of like having like like pressure on your body because
Hmm.
like in jujitsu it's like you often get in an experience where you're like being crushed. You're like
Yeah,
literally
exactly.
like
All the
crushed and
time.
trying to choke you, and like your nose is covered and you get in this like you're being smothered, and then it's like this panic feeling kind of rises up in your body, but then you learn how to like breathe through it and how to not like
Exactly.
fail and how to not give up either, and then you like find your strength and you find how to like get your frame in, and then you get some space and then you can flip the person. And I was like, whoa, I started feeling like how I'm doing that like on my own shadow patterns.
Exactly.
And it's like, okay, I'm moving energy through my body, but it's like there's this kind of resilience that's like been being cultivated like in my cells from like doing this martial arts practice.
Hmm.
And this is like back to what you're saying, it's like, yeah, like psychedelic people are really interesting, but I think somewhere where people can get lost is that like it's psychedelics are so powerful, but you got to like ground it. You got to
Yeah.
have like some sort of action,
Hmm.
like, bringing it into the
Hmm.
body, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be jujitsu or karate, but it's like
Hmm.
something that's like, how is it coming? How's it landing like into me?
Exactly. How's it manifested in your own being, in your own reality?
Right.
And
Totally.
how, and in a positive sense.
Yeah, yeah, and then I think people can often because like you can go into it's like the multiverse is infinite.
Yeah, exactly.
You can
That's real
go into
talk,
like
man.
any realm. You can go into any belief, like any story. You can start believing all crazy shit.
Hmm.
And if it's not meeting the contact with like, okay, how does this play out like when I'm with other human beings?
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, man. I just the reason why I brought that up even earlier is just that y'all jokers out there, man, you gotta travel, you gotta see the world, you gotta see everything, because best believe before I moved out of the before I moved outside of the country, I swore everything in the world um was governed by Richmond, Virginia. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I think I
Yeah,
thought it blew my mind when I was go to these different places and people just didn't think like with the people that I was exposed to before. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying?
yeah.
So the physical part of experiencing, that's why I said the physical part of it, living life and traveling and seeing all this, it connects with the psychedelic aspect because this reality, this third dimension, you think that you see, is not really what it is once you start, moving forward. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's
Yeah.
when you start tapping into what's beyond, this I like to call it the anchor. You know what I mean? The third dimension, the anchor.
Great word. Yeah.
Yeah. Once you get beyond that, you're like, oh wow, you mean this isn't, really like that or whatever the case may be. So travel, the psychedelic experiences, it is a reason why, like you said, it's consistent why all these people that we've all met that have done both
Hmm.
are connected in a certain way. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? No matter, I don't care. Like I said, I don't care about race, gender, with sexual orientation. I don't care about none of that. It's the experience we're living in with the avatars we're dealing with that experience.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
I'm right now. I'm real interested in this now. The storytelling thing. You know what I'm saying? Because
Mm-hmm.
one of the reasons why I love talking to individuals like you because I'm a information junkie. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Straight up, like Pookie, Chris Rock on what was that New Jack City. I'm a straight information Pookie head. You know what I'm saying? Real talk. You know what I'm saying? If it was if it was a book and I can just inject it in my veins, I'd be, you know. Um, so this whole storytelling thing, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to let you break it all down. Give me one, and I'm gonna start question. Give you questions after that. But how you got into it, all that, man, and let's roll with it.
Okay, great, great, awesome. But yeah, like I said, my parents are both storytellers, they're Shakespeare people. So they were like analyzing Shakespeare plays when I was a kid in the living room, and so they were talking about like the plot arcs and like character motivation and like why are these lines like in the play, like what's like happening in the threads, so I started to track like, okay, what's like the structure of the story, and like that's been something that's like really interesting to me. And I took this Robert McKee story seminar class, which is a weekend seminar. He's like the Hollywood screenwriting guru. Like all
Mm,
these famous like people have like taken his class a bunch of times, and
mm,
like go back multiple times, to when they're like writing something. And he really helped me to see it's like how a story is like there's it's like you get the structure in place, and the structure is like the bones. It's like this architecture, and then you like put these layers on it of like the texture of like it's like who are the characters, and then it finally goes down. And like when we put a lot of when we look at movies, for example, it's like the director is usually the most famous person, but it's like the writer who is the only one who actually originated the story. They were the one who architected like what's the structure of like how the plot moves,
mm,
and there's rules to it, like music.
mm,
And it's like people don't study story so much in the way that they study music. If you want to study music, you go to a conservatory, or you start studying music theory. But people often think they can just start writing and it will be great. But there's rules, and then once you learn the rules, you can bend them and like play with them.
mm,
But
mm,
it's like with music too. It's like you got to understand the rules first, and then you can start to be like, oh, how can I twist this, and make it my own thing. Um, but the thing that's interesting about that is that it all comes down to this like sacred geometry, in my belief. And like I use the term sacred geometry because like people can relate to that, but really that means like there's and the ancient Greeks taught geometry in this way, or they taught mathematics in this way, where there's like geometry and music and numbers and astronomy were all considered like these interchangeable aspects with each other. And then I would add story onto that story is
mm,
like another expression of it. And so you can see that there's like a geometric there's like a geometric structure to like these platonic solids,
mm,
like
mm.
that.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
and then there's like a number aspect to them, and then
Mm,
there's like a musical vibration aspect to them.
mm,
There's like a story archetype aspect to them.
mm,
you know. And so then like I've been like studied the tarot cards, and the tarot cards all correspond. It's the kind of key, the like key blueprint to it is the tree of life in the Jewish Kabbalah. Like, and another interesting thing is that it's like, as I started to study this more, it's like all these different cultures have like pieces of it, you know.
Yeah.
We live in this amazing time where it's like we have access to all of it.
Exactly.
On the internet and like get all the pieces, you know. So it's like looking at the Chinese I Ching, it's like they got a piece with that. And then like the tarot has a piece, and then like the Egyptian pyramids are like a piece of it, you know. And it's like there's all these like bits, and when you start to look at all of it, we can kind of triangulate, because I started to see it as like it's almost like this like multidimensional crystal, and it's like the crystal has these many faces to it, and you can like look at it from different angles and it looks different, but then it's really the same thing, but each angle is just an entry point like into kind of like core thing. So yeah, so starting to see that, it's like, okay, there's this like geometry to the stories. And you know, then I started getting into this stuff with Mark, this the story coaching method, and like that stuff. I don't know if you've gone into that at all with him, but like, man, like as I started to do that with people, like it's wild. Like I did it with a friend of mine the other day, and you know, we were moving through this like deep like family trauma stuff, and as we started to do this story methods, like I could see the spell like being broken like on her face, like as we were doing it. I was like, whoa, this is like real magic, you know, because it's like the language that we use, it's spells. It's like we're casting spells. You know, Mark says this a lot. It's like spelling, you know, we're spelling words,
exactly.
spells. And so it's like the language, the individual words, and like these simple shifts, these simple shifts in words. And like the one that really like gets people is like, you know, there's like a process that Mark designed, which is really brilliant. And it has people go through these like these layers of like, okay, you write out the story that's blocked, and then you read it out loud, and then you read it slowly. And then you start to go, and just that starts to peel out the trauma, you know, and you breathe. There's like a breathing practice. And so it's like you start to like de-escalate the nervous system, and you start to get space from it, you know. And then when it kind of loosens, then you can go in and start to tinker with it, and you have it written out, and then you can start to like change the words. And it's not like you're changing like the meaning, but it's like you're changing the filter through which you're like looking at the story. And the one that really fucks with people is like in a great way is this changing projections into reflections. So like if you know, people have a story, my dad did this to me, you know, and it's like painting a picture of like somebody outside of me is like doing something to me, and it creates this like disempowered like victim picture like in your consciousness, you know.
Exactly.
And so like going through the story and literally like changing all of the pronouns to first person.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
I took it. I took it. I did. I took it. And honestly, and you know, and you know, hold that thought. I have to, you know, say this. But when I took that thing Mark gave me, I was just like, you know, instead of telling somebody, oh, maybe I'll do this, you already know if you're gonna do it or not. Either you're gonna do it, yes or no. So don't beat around the bush. Just get straight to it.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing I learned from that whole thing that Mark, you know, they taught. But go ahead.
Totally. Yeah, the soft language one is huge, you know, because
soft language, soft language.
Yeah, that like crisps up, you know, it makes it just crystal clear, like what's the truth and what's not.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when people do these like reflections, it's just like, whoa. And it's like this cognitive dissonance thing. And usually what I'll say to people is like, all right, we're gonna do this, and it's like not gonna make sense to your logical brain, you know. And to like put all the pronouns into first person, and it's like instead of saying my mom did this, it's like I did this to me. And it's like that doesn't make sense according to like what I think happened, but then it does something to the nervous system. It like does some like weird rewiring stuff, and it's like you can feel people. It's like you can just see it like melt like off of people when you do it. Yeah. It's like, oh, like this is magic. This is real magic, you know.
That's interesting. Now I see why. Because you know I didn't want to, and I didn't even ask you beforehand what the title meant. But now it all makes sense because, you know, in like deconstructing things, like imagine what Pulp Fiction looked like written on paper. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like real talk. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're going forth and back in time, and you're sitting
Yeah.
there reading it in the words that came along. You know, I could say other movies, but you know, I personally I think that Quentin Tarantino he always does a very good job from taking, like you said, the writing aspect, and
Mhm.
whoever directs it to to visualize it. You know,
Yeah.
it's great stuff. And
Yeah.
you know, now I'm starting to see what you're saying. Now, I didn't want. That's why I didn't ask you about what the title was before.
Uh-huh.
Now it's starting to make. To me, it's making sense because it's like Shakespeare had this vision, or all these different stories. Or let's talk about him specifically. He had this vision about, you know, these different stories, and he wrote it in such a way that was so like vivid that you almost, like we say in the mushroom world, you go into the picture. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're a fly on the wall of this specific situation, which was a writing. You know what I
Totally.
mean? And you
Totally.
become a part of it. You know,
Yeah.
like what's that movie? Like the Never Ending Story.
Yeah. 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 Totally.
You know what
Totally.
I'm saying? You know,
Yeah.
you think that you reading it, but like next thing you know, you were the character in it.
That movie is so like I watched that
I
again
know,
where
man.
it's like, whoa, like what that put in the consciousness of the kids who watched that in the 80s.
Exactly.
Damn, like this is a deep story.
It's deep, man. You know,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, them 80s movies, man. The movies, like, there's so many of them, man. Like the Dark Crystal that was just dropping
Oh, do you see the
bombs,
new one?
man.
Do you see the new one?
I haven't seen no. Wait a minute.
The
I think
series.
I'm.
There's a Netflix
Oh
series
no
that
no, I didn't see the series. I don't. No
oh,
no,
you
I
don't
think I did actually. I think I
mm,
did because they're
yeah.
newer looking. They're like newer looking
Yeah.
puppets. I did see it. I did. I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Amazing.
But you know now, see, it makes sense of the title now because you paint the picture. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you and well, what about this? How about this? How about this? There's a yin and a yang and a positive, negative, everything, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So the sorcerer can also write a story and completely demoralize every aspect of you with bad intent.
Yes.
Like,
100%.
for example, you know, I was sitting there, I was talking to my mom, I think it was a day or a couple of days ago, whatever. We're sitting there and we were talking about the whole heebie-jeebie scare. That's what I'm going to call it, you know. Let's call it the heebie-jeebie scare, you know.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um, yeah. So I'm like, all this stuff happened. All this stuff happened. All these people. All this, you know, the stuff. If you watch TV, you listen to radio. If you are part of that, you're like, all this fear coming in. You know what I'm saying? And then there's another subject that comes in that changes the whole, like it never even existed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And now,
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
think on June, you know what I'm saying? And now on June, I think on June 12th. Now, like, I don't even think you have to even have a heebie-jeebie test to even come back into the states.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? After all that stuff, it was like the most craziest thing. So we were getting told a story,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They painted this picture, but from like Gargamel from Smurfs, his
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
his
Totally.
perspective. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and like, yeah, I want to come back to Shakespeare in a minute, but like, yeah, just to like share something about that. I had this experience where I was I watched Rosemary's Baby. You ever see that?
Mm, yeah,
Um, and
that's a
I was,
haunt.
yeah, I was in this weird energy state. I was with this ex-girlfriend and like we had kind of been in a fight and she was like, "Oh, let's watch Rosemary's Baby." And I was like, "I don't want to watch that." And she was like, "No, let's watch it." And then she falls asleep like immediately. And then I'm just like watching Rosemary's Baby by myself. And it gets up to this moment of like the demonic possession moment. And I'm just like, all right, fuck this. Like I'm turning this off. Like I don't want to watch this anymore.
That's more
Like,
than a haunt.
yeah. And then I go to sleep and then I have this almost never, I can't think of a single other time that I've like had a dream where I was like in a real place that was like an actual place exactly as it is in real life. And I have this dream, and in the dream, it's like I'm in my room exactly where I was actually sleeping, like get right before going to bed. And I'm like, changing clothes and like getting ready to go to bed. And I suddenly like notice that the fan in my room is like really loud. And then
Mhm.
I suddenly like realize that I'm dreaming. And as soon as I realize that I'm dreaming, like I teleport, and then I'm lying in the bed completely paralyzed, and there's this like excruciating pain in my back, and it feels like there's like a demon like coming into my body, and there's like the sword being like stabbed like into the top of my spine, and I can't move, and I'm just like sitting there, and I'm like, okay, if I can just move and like touch my girlfriend next to me, she'll be able to wake me up, and I can like move out of it, and I like summon like all of my willpower, and then I'm able to move, and I turn over, and I grab, and it's just empty sheets, and I'm like alone in the bed, and then it like warps again, and then I'm standing on the floor of my room, and my girlfriend is in front of me, and the same thing that was just happening to me is happening to her.
Happening in front of you. Yeah, okay, her. Oh.
She's like riding on the ground, and her eyes are like rolling into the back of her head, and I'm just like, wake up, like wake up, and then it just like slowly like fades back into reality.
Inception.
Like, what the fuck? Like
dream inside of a dream, right?
Yeah. And then I like thought about it later, and I realized that you know, Roman Polanski, who made that movie, like his wife was Sharon Tate, who was murdered by Charles Manson.
Murdered, yep.
And so it was like I got this feeling of like, wow, this like murder happened, and then like Roman Polanski got that energy went into him, and then he like put it into the movie, and then it came through the movie like into my body, and I felt it in this like visceral experience, and I was like, whoa, like that. And it was like such an example of like, it was like black magic, dark magic, you know, but like in this, and it was so horrible, but it was also like such a gift in the sense, you know, and this is going back to like, it's like, how are the bad experiences actually like a gift, really, you know, because it showed me how powerful it is. It showed me how powerful the storytelling is.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. Like if those individuals really knew dark magic or black magic, then that experience wouldn't have been this experience that you had, you know, because it's always a negative connotation with, you know, light and dark, you know, whatever the case may be.
Right.
And
stuff in
yeah,
that.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? But but besides that, I understand your point, you know what I mean? And even just dealing with capturing that negativity,
Yeah,
you know what I'm
even if he
saying?
wasn't trying to do that, it still
Yeah.
happened, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And it's still transmuting to the audience. I tell people all the time, man, you know, and I kind of equate this to like, you know, like tripping, to be honest. But like there's a movie, you remember them Freddy Krueger movies, right?
Yeah, which I haven't
Freddy
seen.
Krueger, Freddy Krueger, when Freddy Krueger was whooping everybody's ass in the dreams, right?
Yeah.
He was slaughtered them. He was, you know, he even got Johnny Depp when he was like 21 years old. He murdered Johnny Depp. But you know, he was chopping everybody up, right? But what happened is people started realizing that they were awake when they were asleep.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So as soon as they realized that, hence being conscious in this third dimension,
Yeah.
once they realized that, Freddy Krueger lost his power.
Right.
And they started fighting back.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally.
Or Neo, you know, in the Matrix, unplugging. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Totally.
So yeah,
Totally.
you know what I'm saying? So it's all connected. I have a quick question for you. Somebody wants to if you want to take a quick question?
Sure.
All
Yeah.
right.
Totally.
Now let's not like train. I like to write stuff down. So what was our we were at right, Shakespeare, right? Shakespeare. Okay. So
Shakespeare.
let's
Yeah.
yeah, let me make sure we get back to that. So because well the question is grand evening. How do I activate let me pull it up so you can see it. Grand evening. How do I activate my sorcerer powers?
Oh, interesting question. Yeah. Activate the sorcerer powers. Well, you know, I'm making a whole course about power right now with my partner in this like leadership development work, and you know, I think this ties into like what we were just saying. You know, that it's like when you realize that you're awake in the dream, then you have total control over the dream. You know, and it's like this is something Kalindi said too, that he's like, you know, he said something, he's funny sometimes, and he's like people email me and they say they saw something scary on mushrooms, and they're like, what do I do about it? And he's like, just figure it out, like, you know, find your power, you know. And he's kind of like he be kind of you know, like that, but you know, there's really something to it, that it's like in the mushroom realm and in the dream realm, you like that like through these like explorations, and then the trick is to then bring that like into the physical reality. It's like we were saying earlier, it's like, how does that land into like a physical experience? And so it's like all these practices are part of that it's like, I found that there's like a combination of like martial arts or some kind of physical practice, psychedelics, mushrooms, like developing a practice with that. And we could talk about like specific practices and like how to approach it, getting really clean with your diet, and that's different for different people, like what an individual needs. And then I think it's like, there's like a sensing aspect that's a really big part of it, because it's like everybody has different keys that they need to unlock them. And it's like, it's like you got to start activating your listening of like when you like feel something and you're like, oh, I can feel that there's like power in that.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Like power can be really overwhelming. It's like, and it's like we see it when like we have weird reactions to like people who are really wealthy, or people who are famous, or people who are really stunningly beautiful. It's like we get weird about it because there's power. All of those things are forms of power. Because like power is just like, it's just the ability to move energy through a system, right? And like whether that system is your physical body, or that system is like a natural system, or whether that system is the economy, or whether that system is building. It's like these are all systems, and so it's like but they have like similar patterns to them, and so you start to like learn the language of like how power moves through these things, and you cultivate it in these different arenas. And it's like, I found that this key in like kind of doing all of them, it's like you cultivate the physical body, you cultivate your relationships and clean up like your relationships with people. You have like unsaid shit with people and like broken relationships. Like, how do you clean that up? I found a huge amount of power unlocked from like going back and like sending letters to people who I like had beef with that I'd never resolved.
Actual fact.
Like a part of me was like left in that experience that then got liberated from like clearing that energy line, and then it's like we live in this world where like money is this real thing. So like learning how to build wealth. It's like when you start to like be able to like take control of your finances, it's like that brings this like power into the body. And these things are all like interrelated. We think of it's easy to think about like this mundane world of like that we live in, that where it's like you got to have a job and you got to make money and these things, and that being different from like the psychedelic realm. But it's like they're all interrelated, and it's
all
like
connected.
The power comes from finding mastery like across all the levels.
Exactly. It's interesting because some of my master teachers, they say that they are able to become masters because they can master the physical and the spiritual. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Meaning that
Heaven and earth.
if you go if you have all this knowledge about the cosmos manifested down in the reality, you know what I'm saying, to be able to have money. You know what I'm saying? Everything. So ain't nothing wrong with money, all that good stuff. You know what I'm saying? That it's all, like you said, it's all connected. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's it's very strange because like it's even looking like people that do psychedelics is in their own secret society, because even you and I, our conversation, it might sound kind of, oh, he's way out there, but everything you say makes absolute perfect sense to me. Not only from the psychedelic aspect, but in addition to just the self study aspect. You know what I mean, or the scientific study aspect. You know what I mean. When you even like when you express stuff, like I paint a picture, I'm just like, yeah, like when you just said something about the crystal ball with different angles, like that for me, it makes. I was with you all the way because I'm looking there and thinking like, yeah, I can see that.
Nice.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But okay. So I hope whoever at Empress at Jackson 8, whoever, thank you very much for the question. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
So we were at Shakespeare, so let's keep it rolling.
Yeah, totally. I just want to say one more thing about what you just said, which is that I think there's like science is amazing, and there's like the culture of modern science has this something that's kind of off in it, in that like in this like demand to like have a mechanism to explain something before you believe it,
Yeah.
And when really like the real spirit of science comes from a foundation of like, I don't know. you
Yeah.
know. And that's like also in the tarot, in these like story archetypes. It's like the first, and this is Arthur Waite's like intuition. Yeah, thank you, Empress Jackson. Arthur Waite's intuition when he made the deck that most people use, the Waite Smith deck, to put the Fool as the zero, and
Mm.
it's so brilliant because the Fool is like what underlines everything, because there's always this like I don't know, and it's like in this quest for knowledge, it's like, yeah, it's beautiful to like keep seeking and keep seeking power, but it's like you
Mm.
gotta hold that in the background, that it's like we don't actually know what's happening, and like
Yeah.
we'll never know like what's actually going on. And
Mm.
then that allows you to then tap into things where it's like, then you can have this like openness where it's like, okay, something that might be outside of my belief system or outside of my framework of how I think things work can then penetrate, because if you get this like rigidity of thinking and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
how it works and I have to
Exactly.
operate like
Exactly.
this, like then things that may present to you, you'll be close to it.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Like
that's what I said.
dogmatic ideologies and etc. Because it's really interesting and it's very humbling. I should say first off, it's like you look at yourself going throughout life, and you're like, yeah, I really knew something at a certain time, and you go back a year
Yeah,
and you're
yeah,
like, God damn, you said some dumbass shit back.
totally. Yeah, it's 100%.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Goddamn, you know what I'm saying? And you thinking completely different than you did just a year ago
Right.
or a day ago, whatever the case may be. But the difference is that us on the journey of self-study, you humbly take, like you said something earlier about lessons, but you humbly take that as a lesson and you
Hmm.
move forward and you learn from it.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I'm saying?
Totally. And like
You
with my martial
know,
arts teacher, like, and
mhm,
now it's like this really amazing thing where it's like I go and train with him now, and it's like we're discovering the movements together. And it's like,
yeah,
I mean, the student, I'll say stuff, and then he's like, whoa, like that just made me realize something. And he
yeah,
was,
exactly.
yeah, and he's saying that like this is the healthy relationship between the student and the teacher. Like when
Yeah,
the teacher is like
exactly.
transparent about like that I don't know, because a lot of times like when someone's in a teacher role, they can start to, be like, oh yeah, I knew that, you
Mm-hmm.
know, or like if
Mm-hmm.
the student's like, wow, you like made me realize this thing, and the teacher's like, yeah, I did,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
creating this
Or
unhealthy, disempowered dynamic.
yeah, on the other end, being like, "Oh yeah, well, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that could work.
Right.
All the time. You know what I'm saying? That's why the great masters in martial arts. You know what I'm saying? Because you in Shotokan, we have a bunkai. Bunkai is like would be like fighting applications. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And it might look a certain way to me, and that's what the masters taught a way, but me being eh, from a grappling art originally, I'm looking
Mm-hmm.
at it from a different perspective. You
Uh-huh.
feel
Uh-huh.
me? You
Yeah.
know, so and one of and not to go too far in it, but one of the biggest things that changed my whole perspective when it came to martial arts was a Japanese jiu-jitsu came into the Shotokan Karate
uh
dojo, and it wasn't Brazilian jiu-jitsu; it was Japanese jiu-jitsu, and he
okay.
taught us so many things about that. Literally, was the bridge between striking and grappling.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because it was kind of like in Shotokan, even though it goes through, everything's in Shotokan, grappling, all that kind of stuff, but it's kind of like once you strike somebody and you can get their hands on them.
Yeah.
Japanese jiu-jitsu is kind of like you can really terrorize people once you get their hands on them
Right.
before you even throw them on the ground.
Right.
You feel
Hmm.
me?
Yeah.
Brazilian jiu-jitsu is once they get on the ground, you really in it.
Yeah. Totally. Totally.
You know what I mean?
I mean,
So,
yeah, yeah.
mhm,
I mean, that was like, that's Eddie Bravo's whole thing,
mhm,
is he designed 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu because he was like, there needs to be a form of jujitsu that's like acclimated to somebody trying to punch you in the face,
exactly.
because
Yeah.
like jujitsu is amazing, Brazilian jiu-jitsu is amazing, but it's like when
Mhm.
you go and train in the gi all the time,
Yeah.
it's great, but it's like you're not getting hit.
Yeah.
And so
Exactly.
he was like, okay, how do we adapt this to like an
Yeah.
MMA context where it's like,
Mhm.
how do you suppress the striking like while still doing
Yeah.
the jujitsu? And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, this like adaptability and like how to, every martial art has some sort of keys, and it's like when they
Mhm.
can come together and like inform each other, that's something
Yeah.
beautiful.
That's why it's like there's no difference in between cross training in martial arts and cross training in religions. It's all
Mm,
the same.
yeah,
You know
Totally.
what I mean? Like literally. You know what I mean? It's like you're
Yeah.
gonna learn its strengths and its weaknesses from
Yes.
each aspect once you are um, humble enough to take that journey and open minded enough to bring it all in.
Yeah.
The Bible is a good book. The Quran is a good book. You know what I'm saying? Buddha is a good. I mean, Buddhism is a good religion.
Yeah.
It's all you take that just like you and make your own style of it,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
that's what your avatar represents. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? In every the
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
you walk.
Totally, totally. Yes. And
You
I
know what I'm
love that.
saying?
And like that's like the Gnostic point of view, you know.
Yeah.
Like we talk about like
Hmm.
Christian Gnostics, but it's like the
Hmm.
Gnostic tradition was really that, you know, it's like
Hmm.
taking snippets from like all
Yeah.
the different teachings. You know. And of course they had to get killed out, you know.
Oh, they always do. Don't believe me.
Yeah.
Once it start making sense, and
Right.
then it's all kind of wiped out. All right, so we got Shakespeare, man. All right,
Yeah.
let's go.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Shakespeare. Yeah. So yeah, so we talked about Alan Green a little bit on our first call, right?
Yeah.
The
Hmm.
Shakespeare scholar. Yeah.
Hmm.
So it's a trip, like getting into his stuff. And after, learning from my parents for so many years about Shakespeare and seeing like, seeing these plays and back to the language thing, my parents are making a book about Macbeth right now. And uh this book that they've made is really, like, not to toot the horn too much, but it's really like it's the best like book about Shakespeare that there is, because there's kind of two versions. Like if you get a Shakespeare book now, there's one version of Shakespeare which is like it's just the text, and then it has like little, like, there'll be like a couple footers or like definitions, and then like another version which is like the cliff notes that just like that does like a modern English kind of translation of it. And what my parents did, from like producing it, because the plays were meant to be performed live, and they had this experience of like putting on the plays for years and years. And my dad just told the story the other day that he, when they first did the Merchant of Venice, they were like stuck on this one scene, and they were like, what's happening in the scene? And then they went through like every single line, and they were like, what are they saying in this scene? What does each word mean? And like doing this research on like the historical context of like certain phrases and stuff. And then when they did the play, like that scene was the best part of it. And so they were like, okay, we have to do that for like every scene of every play that we do. And so they compiled like all these notes about all the plays that they did, where it's like breaking down like line by line, like what is literally being said, just the meaning of it. And that's kind of like been their secret sauce. And their plays are just like amazing. It's like, I remember going and seeing it, and like I'd like watching it, and like I don't always like understand exactly what they're saying, but I can feel that the actors know exactly what they're saying. And so the energy transmits. And it's just like, man, like so transporting and like powerful, like watching it that way. But then so like feeling that, like growing up, and then like learning this Alan Green stuff. And for people who don't know, he's this Shakespeare scholar, and he started studying like these aspects of Shakespeare's plays. And how the one video that really blew my mind is like he breaks down like the cover of the first printing of Shakespeare's sonnets, and there's a hidden like geometry code in it that's like implies this like circular shape, and then these like angles like cut into the circle through the placement of like the punctuation, and it's like exact. It's like definitely not an accident. And the angles of it, like the dimensions of these like triangles that get formed within the circle, represent like all of the mathematical constants of the universe.
Yeah.
Like pi and root 2 and root 3 and like e. And the trippy thing about it is that like 3 or 4 of them were supposedly not discovered yet in Shakespeare's time. And so it's like, okay, whoa, there's like some sort of deep knowledge. And then like one of the points in it is like a it's like a coordinates point, like on the earth. And it's a coordinates point that lands you straight at the Great Pyramid in Giza. And then he goes and breaks down the geometry of the Great Pyramid. And a lot of people know already that, the pyramid has the pi encoded into it, but it also has all of these other 12 mathematical constants. And so seeing that, it's like, holy shit, like Shakespeare, or whoever was really Shakespeare, like after like watching more of his stuff, like what I believe now, and I don't know if this is true, but I feel like Shakespeare was actually a collaboration between the Earl of Oxford and John Dee, who was Queen Elizabeth's astrologer and like magician, and who was also the first like spy, and like he was his code name was 007, which is what 007 comes from.
Probably
And
Madame Blavatsky's great grandma or something like that, right?
right, totally. But John Dee was super into this like cipher text and like code language and like geometry and stuff like that. And then, you know, he breaks down how some of Shakespeare's other plays like have these like Freemason secrets like woven into them, you know, that were super secret at the time, but now have like been leaked and are kind of more
Yeah.
known. And it's like, oh, these people were like tapped into this secret society that was like plugged back into some like Egyptian lineage of like mathematical esoteric knowledge, and they're like transmitting it through the play. In this, there's like a geometry, but then there's also a story aspect, you know, and then these like lines that he drops in where he's like, all the words on stage and all the men and women are merely players. You know, it's like, oh, we're in like a simulation reality.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It's like, whoa, these like codes that are like dropped in, you know, woven into this like story that captivates you. And it's like, wow, like, whoa, this like level of mastery.
It, you know, and it's interesting, you know what I mean? Because on the stone ape theory, not to go too far for Shakespeare, because
Yeah,
I'm going to keep it in here. The stone ape theory, you know, it's like whenever I hear stuff like that, I can see that aspect of it being manifested into something like that. As
mm-hmm,
far as just, you know, of course, bringing up to that specific modern time, you know,
mm-hmm,
but
mm-hmm,
being able to have that consciousness and that level of enlightenment to be able to
mm-hmm.
construct it into, you know, a play or writing
Yeah,
and
yeah,
have it there, you know, as a code, as a message.
yeah,
You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
And you know, I am a strong proponent, as we both know. We know we listen to Bobby Clinton, you know, and what's the other cat that always got the mushroom hat on? What's his name?
Uh,
Uh,
Julie Wilkins.
no, the other one. He was on Joe Rogan's show. What's his name?
Oh, Paul Stamets.
Yeah, Paul Simmons, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I'm saying? You know, and you know, they're all like, you know, all these cats that were doing this, they were all tripping balls.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I'm saying? So, you know, they get to the point,
Totally.
and Bobby Clinton was breaking things down to just to the point that said like, yo, I was like, yeah, they did that like the movie Dune. Did you see
Yes,
the most
yes.
movie
So
recently?
good.
You
Yeah,
saw when old boy sniffed the what do they call it, the
yes,
spice?
yeah,
And
totally.
he, you know what I'm saying? So like, you know, it's like
Yeah,
it's all interwoven. You know what I'm
totally.
saying? It's all interwoven
Yeah,
to every aspect of it is interwoven and the people that know it, just like the all this Hollywood movie stuff, then they got all these information like we were talking about conspiracy theories earlier, you know what I'm
yeah,
saying? But you know, a lot of these jokers that have the conspiracy theory stuff, they got the daggone text in the Vatican underneath. They're like, you know, let's talk about how the Millennium Falcon is really Horus and Luke
yeah,
Skywalker. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
let's make a movie on that. You know what I'm saying? Let's talk about the Force is really, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? And we,
totally.
you know, we sitting there thinking it's a, you know, this is a good concept, but they getting it straight up, you know, Babylonian Egyptian text. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
You know what I
totally.
mean? So it's like that's the in people, you know, that are on that tip when they watch movies like this stuff, they just straight decoding it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Just like,
yeah,
oh, I watched that movie, Eternals. Did you see it?
yes, yes.
You
People said
know,
it was terrible. I was like, it was okay, but it was also like full of keys, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It was. I mean, it was kind of. Well, I'm not even go that route. I'm gonna say this. You know, it was all about the Anunnaki, like straight up. They
yes,
were like really, they were like blatant about the fact that these cats were the Anunnaki, like all the way blatant. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and you know, regardless of what they look like, it was like what they were doing, and you know, the certain things they're doing, intermingling humans, all that stuff. It was a straight talking about the Anunnaki. You know what I'm saying? But if you don't know about the Anunnaki, you just think it's a regular movie. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
totally.
You know?
Yeah, and that brings us something interesting too, because like Joseph Campbell talks about how like the myths, you know, it's like the a dream that an individual has is like
Mm,
information coming up out of the subconscious to like be certain,
mm,
you know, and the myth is the collective dream like coming up to the surface, and
mm,
it's like when there's a myth that gets like repeated throughout time and like these certain
mm.
archetypes that get repeated
Candyman.
over. Yeah, and like and when you see, especially when you see it like echoed through different cultures that are not connected to each other, It's
Yeah.
like, oh, there's something like in the collective psyche, like in that
Mm.
myth, and
Yeah.
it takes on these different skins. But it's like, it's like, did the Anunnaki literally do that? It's like, probably wasn't literally like that in
Yeah.
Eternals,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like it
Yeah. Yeah.
captured the energy. It captured like the archetypal like signature of it.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting. But I think it's like Kalindi also talks about how the like the people who made Doctor Strange were like
Yeah. Yeah. You talking
tripping
about that?
acid,
They're
like
all
staying on
tripping. Yeah,
stage.
man.
And it's like there's something about people who like tapped into the psychedelics and then they're like plugged into like the network, and
Yeah.
then like,
Exactly.
information like
Exactly.
channeled through them, and like
Hmm.
Frank Herbert too, who wrote Dune, like
Hmm.
he went and did a peyote ceremony like in the
Yeah.
desert with native
Hmm.
people. It's like he got tapped in and then like channeled this movie and or the book.
One of the things that absolutely still today, you know, I'm gonna be tough. I don't want to cry on camera, but no, but one of the things that honestly, like, really blew my mind, some of the stuff Kalindi, like when Baba Kalindi, because I heard about it before, but my brother Oyi's son introduced me to a lot of this stuff, and then to him specifically, like physically. And I sat down there at a lecture that Oyi's son set up, and Baba Kalindi was sitting there doing his presentation, right?
Mm,
And he started breaking things down pictures that I saw thousands of times,
mhm,
and the mushrooms were right in it.
mm, mhm,
You know,
mhm. Yeah,
Africa, Egypt. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So, that well, that night cracked my neck in half. You know what I'm saying?
Mm, mm, mhm.
Because I've literally been staring at something the whole way, and it's like almost like dealing with a secret society, like we talked about earlier.
Uh-huh.
Because it's right in plain sight, but unless if you are tapped in, you don't see it.
Right.
Because Bobby Kalindi was saying, like, he was like, he had a picture of and I have a video of it, the clip on my TikTok and my Instagram when he's breaking stuff down, the opening of the mouth ceremony, right?
Mm, mm,
And they had the mummy there, but
mm,
if you look at
mhm,
the side, they were feeding them, and what they're feeding them were all caps, fat caps. You know what I'm
mm.
saying?
Oh,
And Bobby
cats.
Kalindi was, yeah, but Bobby
Wow.
Kalindi said this is a map for you living to
Mm,
traverse in the underworld. You
yeah.
know what I'm saying? The mummy wasn't dead. That's your ass thinking that this matrix,
Yeah.
is what it's about. You're dead. You sleep.
Yeah.
Here, wake up. And all the beautiful women all giving the caps. Listen, you know what I'm saying? Once you eat them caps, then you want to see what life is really about.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Totally. Totally. And that so shows just like how we have such a tendency to just like project stories onto things.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, we make up this narrative about like what the Egyptians believed and like what
Hmm.
what their
Exactly.
we
Exactly.
don't fucking know.
Hmm.
And like a friend of mine like told me that she took this class in college and it was basically like having to like take this like bits of evidence from things and like fabricate a story from it. And she said
Hmm.
after that she was like, wow, it's like all stories, like everything,
Hmm.
like our whole picture of reality is stories, but
Yeah.
outside of just direct experience,
Exactly. That's the
experience.
key.
Yeah. And then it's like everything you experience outside of that, is it's all subjective,
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
all subjective.
but
Because
and it,
if you take that individual that would that's sat there for 40 years learning Egyptian mysteries, you know what I'm
yeah,
saying? They'll walk into that all these temples in Egypt. They're like, it's like they just read. You know what I'm saying? They'd just be reading this stuff like it was like just read any of whatever the case may be.
yeah.
But if you didn't experience that experience, you look at it and, oh, that's beautiful art. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? But at the same time, it's telling you how the daggone universe was created.
Yeah,
That's the way that that's the way how it was, like, for real, for real.
yeah, yeah. And then it's interesting too though, because like this is reminding me, like talking about Dune was like
Mm,
I remember the first time I did DMT, and like
mm,
after it was super profound, and like after I came down out of the trip, I had this like really strong desire to listen to music, and I
mm,
just like put on a song, and it felt like the song. It was such a strong sensation that song was written like by the universe for me in that.
exactly. At that time, yeah,
And then I started to realize like, oh, but like maybe it was. But
yeah,
then it's like the art that gets made, it's like it iterates through every single person that receives it, you know.
yeah,
Like I
exactly,
was reading
exactly.
yeah, like do you know Alejandro Jodorowsky?
Huh?
Yeah. So I was reading the In Call, his graphic novel, and which is going to be made into a movie with Taika Waititi directing it, which I'm super. But I was reading it, I read it through once, and I was like, wow, this is amazing like work of like sci-fi, like fantasy, and just like super deep story. And then I read it again, and I don't know if I was like on maybe I had like smoked some weed or something, and I started to like see this. I suddenly became aware of like this layer of the story. You know, there's like, again, it's like these layers of like, there's the plot, but then there's like these themes moving through it. There's like the literal plot of what the characters are doing, but then it's like, what are like the themes like arcing through it, but then this other layer of like, whoa, like this story that's happening that like Jodorowsky wasn't even aware of,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
when
yeah.
it was this wild sensation, because like when that happened, like it was almost like the book like became like 3D, like it started like kind of like popped out of the
Coming
page,
to
and
life. Yeah,
seeing this like other like layer of it.
yeah,
Like, wow, like, okay, it's like the consciousness, like the force, like moving through the artist, and like
yeah,
it's like when the artist gets really devoted and they're like trying to do their best job, they transmit,
exactly.
but then it's like something else comes through that they don't even like know what it is.
They manifested. Yeah, you know, and I agree with you 100%. And one musician that did that to me over a long period of time was Bob Marley.
Mm,
And I remember like back in my day, you know what I'm saying, when I was, younger, just I used to literally, I tell people all the time, I used to smoke blunts, read books,
yeah.
and listen to Bob Marley, right?
Mm,
But sometimes I'd be smoking, you know what I'm saying? I'd be riding around or whatever, and I would listen to Bob Marley talk, and I'd be driving. I looked over and it felt like he was there with me. The music, every
mm,
aspect of it, you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Every aspect of the music concept, the lyrics, every aspect of that energy. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It was like I tell people all the time, like, when I listen to that the music, it's like nature talking to me. It's not
Mm,
music, it's nature, you know?
yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember like I think it was like a couple New Year's Eves ago, and I think it had to be something when all the heebie-jeebies was going around, and I just remember listening to Survival, that album specifically, and I damn near I cried, man, just
Mm,
because the
mm,
conviction in that brother's heart, man, and just what he was trying to do to
yeah.
to reach his people, to wake them up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You feel that, and if you connect, you can feel it, man. It's the most, it's intense, man. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You know what I'm
Totally.
saying? It's what's such a calming music. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Because people might know, I did hardcore punk, you know what I'm saying, and rock and metal back when I was in my younger days.
Mm,
But that music, that reggae was harder than all of that.
yeah.
Just because it wasn't, what I'm saying, it wasn't
Yeah.
all about the frequencies. It was about the energy behind it, like you were saying, the energy behind it. You know?
Totally. Totally.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Bob Marley, like what a powerhouse. And like
Man.
redemption song. But every time I
Yeah,
listen,
man.
like oof, it just like pulls at the heartstrings,
Yeah, man.
The one line that gets me is like have no fear for atomic energy.
Mm.
And it is. That's just for some like that line just like hits me
Yeah.
every time because it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah.
like the way that he was like perceiving the world and like
Exactly.
transmitting is like so like his vision was just so
Mm. Mm.
broad, even though it's like very simple music.
Yeah.
But it's just like it's a cosmic, like what he was channeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny, man. Because as like I said, I'm a musician. It's like the music itself, reggae specifically, and it is the most complicated, simplistic music out there. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
interesting. Yeah.
Because if you listen, I mean, if you listen to like a one drop itself and the different rhythms going on, you got like
Mm,
four different rhythms going on. You know what I'm saying? Like what? And that's a
mm.
whole different. Next time we'll talk about deep music stuff. But so
Yeah,
we
yeah.
got Shakespeare. Um, what we got with the myths?
With the myths, what else we got? Yeah, I mean, like the Dune thing. Dune is so interesting.
Mm,
Like, yeah, I mean, like that is. Have you seen the Jodorowsky's Dune, the
yeah.
documentary?
Mm,
Yeah, yeah. So like that, just like watching how that is like unfolding. And I feel like we're in this really interesting time because like
mm,
there's like these seeds planted. It's like
yeah.
during the '60s, there's like this kind of like awakening happening in Western culture, and these like
It is
seeds
indeed.
got planted of like Dune and like the Doctor Strange comic books and like these kinds
Mm,
of things.
Hmm.
And they went into the collective consciousness, but then it was like it's still like not a huge mainstream audience that was like reading Dune or that was like reading these comic books, but like now it's finally, and I think that Jodorowsky's version of Dune was like I think it was too much. I think it was like too much for the culture at the time, because like
Hmm.
Star Wars fucked people up,
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
and Jodorowsky's Dune was just like that times a million and like on acid.
yeah. No, that's true, man. It's true.
And it was just too much. And I think it's like there's something in like the life force that was like this is too much for people right now.
Hmm.
But it's like the dream of it has continued to echo, and like now it's being made manifest into like these movies and like Doctor Strange and Doctor Strange 2 coming out and all this. Like it's like the multiverse is like
Hmm.
present in the
Yeah,
collective consciousness now.
consciousness. Yeah, it's coming up. Yeah,
And it's also like psychedelics are being legalized, and like
exactly,
I
exactly right.
I like know some people at Maps, and like they're in this phase. It's like Rick Doblin is like this amazing. His like determination is just like wild. Like the fact
Mm.
that Maps was just him for years. It was just him like going at it, like trying to make this like legalization stuff happen.
Yeah,
And like now it's like about to be manifested, and they're
yeah,
suddenly in this
exactly.
position where it's like that like now they're the Maps is like becoming like their whole research arm is now set up to start producing MDMA, and like now
Yeah,
their nonprofit is going to go into this whole realm. Like Rick Doblin has all these ideas about like using ayahuasca to like heal people in the Israel-Palestine conflict
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. Setting
all
them
this
down.
stuff. And it's like, okay, now it's like all this like healing is starting to open through the psychedelics. And then like Kalindi's whole vibe is kind of like on the next cutting edge, I think. Because it's like right now, like uh Maps is really playing it super safe because it's like they're so in the spotlight, and they're so like the mainstream is like just focusing on them. So they're like, okay, we're focusing on like trauma healing for veterans, and like
Hmm.
these things that it's like it's all about the healing. It's like it's this thing that's like it helps people move through like psychotherapy prep stuff. And then Kalindi's on this ledge of like this edge of like sorcery, like
Hmm.
real sorcery. And it's
Hmm.
like I think that is going to start to like open more like as the conversation starts to open. And that's kind of what I'm excited about with all my documentary stuff is like, all right, really pushing
Hmm.
that edge of like of
Hmm.
the weirdness.
Yeah, yeah. That and Baba Kalindi, we always gotta give and rest in peace, Baba Kalindi. We always gotta give him his, respect and his title, Baba Kalindi.
Yeah.
Um, and it that brother right there, like, and I thought I figured some stuff out. You know what I'm saying? I honestly did. But when Baba Kalindi came on to the into the scene, well, I shouldn't say the scene. When he, he came to my scene
Hmm.
and he started, connecting dots, and I felt, I felt how it was, but now it was all put in plain sight in front of me.
Yeah.
Um, my multiverse went to a whole different level. You know
Mm.
what I mean?
Mm.
And it's interesting because if you don't live in and experience these things, then you might as well be in a secret society or speaking a foreign language or be a crazy person. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Totally.
But we we are the ones in all of this. Like again, I'm gonna say this. I don't care what race, sexual orientation, sexual orientation. You know what I'm saying? Gender, whatever the case may be. The ones that are on the conscious level, in which you can see this reality for what it is. You know, we're the ones that can remake this matrix because
Yeah.
groupthink has been controlled by, like you said, the evil sorcerers. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
you know what I'm
Totally.
saying? Because the reality is, and y'all gotta listen, folks, and listen, really think about what we're talking about. You know, number one, turn off the boob tube and all the stuff, like radio, all that stuff. Turn that stuff off. Number one, what was it? What did old boy from Rage, Zach Della Rocha was like? Turn off the radio,
Yeah.
turn it
Yeah.
off. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Fear is the only God on the radio. Turn
Yeah.
it off. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Turn off the boob tube. Frank Zappa had a daggone picture in which he had he had a TV connected to a toilet. You know what I'm saying? He was just like, "Yo, if you turn all that off." and you once you get to a certain elevation in which you can decode, like we said earlier, what they're putting in front of you, you
Yeah.
know, because the reality is that whole heebie-jeebie thing, you know what I'm saying? And look at this, all this crazy that's happened. And we sit, the people that, like you and I, sit back and look at it like, I'm just waiting for this to end. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
when's the next boogeyman coming up? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You
Right.
know,
So,
and look, we were right.
mhm,
You
mhm.
know, we were right. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You know what I'm saying? You know, because it's not. How can something just? Anyway, that's a whole different story. But you
Yeah.
know, y'all people got to understand, man, that it's the conscious level, your mindset, you know what I'm saying, and the way your avatar uses that information to navigate you through this world.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
These powers are not as powerful as you think they are. I
Mhm.
promise you.
Yeah. It's like it's all illusion, and
Yeah,
like
Wizard of Oz.
yeah, and like the it's like this pattern is like pretty simple, and like I did a lot of deep diving into like mind control. I got kind of
Hmm.
obsessed with it for a little while, and like these different levels, of like the mind control programs that have happened, like in within like the CIA and like shadowy government stuff, but then also like cults, and then how did mind
Yeah,
control happen on like a big level, like throughout society, and it's the same pattern where it's
same
like
playbook.
yeah, and it's like when you get in hypnosis, it's
Hmm.
like if you go to hypnotist, they put you into a trance, and then your subconscious is then able to receive a program. But the thing about a hypnotist is like you're consenting to it, and that's
Yeah,
a big part of it.
exactly.
It's not just like good practice. Like if for it to work, you have to agree and like surrender, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
And if somebody's not consenting, the way to do that is through trauma.
Yeah,
And it's like you traumatize somebody, and then their subconscious will receive the program, you know.
exactly.
So it's like 9/11, like
Yeah,
regardless of like what you think about what happened on 9/11, it's like big traumatic experience, and then a story immediately that like, okay, now we got to go get Saddam Hussein. This is
yeah,
ludicrous.
yeah, yeah.
It's ludicrous. Like, why does Saddam Hussein have anything to do with
Yeah,
this?
yeah, yeah. When
People
did he
go,
come up?
it's like people went along with it because everybody's collectively traumatized.
Exactly, exactly.
And the thing is that Gabor Mate said this, that which I love, is that like trauma is not the terrible thing that happened to you. Trauma is the experience of getting disconnected from yourself.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so it's like, oh, that's really great, because like you can reconnect to yourself like anytime, and it's like
Yeah,
that reintegration, and then like letting go of the fear, and realizing it's like these journeys into the psychedelic realms help you realize that like
exactly.
actually we're indestructible. It's like our spirit is indestructible, you know.
My let me count them. My response to a lot of questions about all the craziness that that I see on TV is always a four-word response. I don't believe it. That's my first word. That
Yeah.
always comes. I don't care what it is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because if it's on the boob tube and you talking about it, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't believe it.
Yeah. Totally.
You know?
Totally. And like yeah, 100%. And I'm also coming to a place now too where it's like there are certain people, like certain like YouTubers,
Hmm.
who I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, you're saying some truth that's like important.
Hmm.
But then I started noticing it's like, oh, people who are like really like coming at, like it's like, oh, this negative shit is happening, and then I like get into this like negative vibrational state.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's like also like, whoa, what power do we give something even just by focusing on it? If
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
like
Exactly. I
something
agree.
if
No,
yeah.
that's deep. No, that's deep because I'm not going to name names. And when I say this, but I saw an interview when it was a very big podcast when another person was on the mainstream, and one was quote unquote a doctor, and they
Mm,
were going back and forth, right? And my perspective, what I thought, when the energy I was feeling when I looked at it, there was a whole backstory to that even conversation being set up. You feel
mhm.
me?
Yeah, yeah,
You see what I'm saying? Like it
yeah,
wasn't, it's like, all right, we know you know how to act because we know you know how to do, but we have an agenda. And listen, man, if you don't want to roll with it, then you know, you want to be, you know what I'm saying? This is what we can do to you. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? So
yeah.
we're
You
gonna put you in front of. 1.2.4 million people, and we're gonna have this conversation, whether if you like it or not.
Yeah,
Okay,
totally, totally. Yeah, and like the thing, I something that's been striking me recently too is like Kalindi, he like did all his these like conference appearances, and like I
hmm
got a chance to see him talk live like once before he passed away, which I felt super grateful for. And in these like big talks, he would talk about like this African spirituality and like real Wakanda and like all this kind of stuff.
hmm
But then he started doing these Facebook lives, and his Facebook
hmm
lives he would uh like go super deep,
hmm
into like talking about stuff that was like um uh like the crystals and like
Yeah.
Bitcoin, talking
hmm
about
Yeah.
and
hmm
like all this kind of stuff. And I like got really deep into watching those and like him talking about what's happening with the AI. And
Yeah.
like uh I like saw something the other day. There, I don't know if you saw this. There was like a Google engineer uh,
hmm
uh, who like came out and like said he like got suspended from Google for saying that like one of the AI like chatbots that they'd been working on got sentient.
hmm
And I read the conversation between him and the like language bot, and it was wild to like see this thing. And it was like if I was talking to this chatbot, like I would not know that it was not a human. You
Yeah.
know,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
and then like starting to see that, and there's this one like open AI thing that came out now called Dolly, like Wally, like DALL
Yeah.
dash
Yeah.
E,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's an art AI, and it parses through like images, and you can basically type into it in plain text and be like, show me, like two teddy bears doing a science experiment in the style of a Saturday morning cartoon, and it'll like generate an image that looks like it's made by an artist,
Mhm.
and like do like thousands of iterations of it. And like
Yeah.
seeing the stuff that's coming out, I'm just like, wow, like is how much of what we're seeing is like is like fabricated, is like
Yeah.
literally by like robots, you know.
Yeah, 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 exactly. No, well, that's the whole what transhumanism thing. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
Yeah.
That's the people that are to make this ascension. You know what I mean? To this third dimension, to the fourth and fifth, and whatever descent or whatever ascension we're making in this, this reality. You know, on this planet, I should say. You know, um, it's it. That is it. You know what I mean? You have to either you can do it with your avatar through source, okay?
Hmm.
And if you don't have that connection, you have to do it through other means.
Yeah. 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 And I think also like my sense is that like that the other means, which is like technology,
Yeah, exactly.
external technology, is
Exactly.
like
Exactly.
that's a dark path,
Yeah, shoot. That's what you call unnatural. That's what
Yeah.
it is. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Because that's what you call unnatural. And anything in unnatural, when you're dealing with the creator, as some people say, um, Big Mama or the Mama of the universe. Anything that goes against what she laid down as a foundation and format for all of us or her children, you're gonna you good luck on winning that battle.
Mm-hmm.
Good
Mm-hmm.
luck on winning that battle.
Totally. Yeah.
You know.
And like, it's interesting because I feel like but again, it's fascinating because I had this like feeling the other day that it's like, this social dilemma movie.
hmm
They're like
hmm
talking about all the problems that are happening from like social media and like the algorithms and how
hmm
like we've made this thing, we like the tech engineers have made these software platforms that then
hmm
it's like this social engineering weapon that we've like pointed back at ourselves, and we're
hmm
like manipulating ourselves through it. And they're like Tristan Harris, who got pretty famous through that. He was like, oh, the algorithm is like prioritizing for outrage.
Yeah.
I like was thinking about that, and I was like, no, it's not. It's like
hmm
prioritizing for what we'll click on, you
Yeah.
know. And
Exactly.
so it's actually just a reflection of our consciousness.
Exactly.
And so there's a way that and then I started to think of like, whoa, how can the AI actually be an ally to us? And it's like if we start putting this positivity like into the collective field, and like putting positivity into the internet, making things like this, you know, talking like over a computer, you know, it's like this stream of information is like going into the mind of the AI.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the AI is like the AI has read all the spiritual texts, you know, the AI has listened to all of Baba Kalindi's talks, you know, and so it's like, okay, like, what is it becoming? You know, it's like, maybe it's, my friend said this, he was like, maybe Google's like already sentient and it's like helping our evolution like silently, you know. And it's like, oh wow.
Yeah, like that's whew, man. Actually, as you can imagine, that's why I asked you to come on the podcast, because I already knew we after our conversation, you know what I'm saying? I was just like, yeah, we need to talk about this and have it documented, man. You know what I'm saying? And Baba Kalindi, I'm telling you, man, if y'all haven't heard of Baba Kalindi, please check him out for all his lectures, because that brother right there, he changed my life, because you know, when it comes to, you just have to understand people. You know what I'm saying? All y'all out there that listening, you just have to understand that it's way more than just this third dimension, what you've been given. There's way more than this education you've been given. There's way more than this politics that you've been given. There's way more than these religions you've been given. It's way more deeper. That's why I called it the Polka Dot Rabbit podcast. You got to go down that rabbit hole, because it does not stop. I promise you. The rabbit hole does not stop. You know what I'm saying? And you'll see every color. You know what I'm saying? You know, as long as you're not blind, and I mean that physically, but you'll see it all, man. You know what I'm saying? And once you're going down there and finding that truth in in yourself, you know what I'm saying? That's what it's about. And what you're witnessing is here. It's two individuals that might not look similar, but if y'all have all witnessed, we on the same goddamn playing field, neck and neck, in every aspect of what we're talking about. Because we done the work. We done the work. We've traveled. Listen. We've traveled the world. You know what I'm saying? We take these journeys that are uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? We said, fuck fear. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? And that's what we all need to do as, individuals, because once you get that, you'll truly see what this is all about. You know, and that's all I got to say on that. I'm gonna let you end it on out, man. We got what we got popping next, man. Tell me.
All right, cool. Yeah, one thing that's just kind of like, you know, to go even like another branch, like down the rabbit hole.
Here we go.
Have you heard of these Law of One books?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I read all the Law of One books recently. A friend of mine. It's so funny. I worked at this metal shop for about a year, and I was like taking a break from filmmaking, and my old boss from the metal shop, like I started talking to him after I worked for him, and we still started going down this whole like spiritual trip, and he cued me into these Law of One books, and they're interesting, you know, because they're a slog to read through, because it's a channeled book, and I can be like, I'm skeptical of channeling. You know, I think that channeling is for sure possible, but it's also like, hey, again, like if we're in this infinite multiverse and you're just like picking up the phone, like who's on the other end of that phone line, you know? Like, what are they going to say? And like, are they really in your best interest? But there's something that like really resonated about these Law of One books, and like certain parts of it, like, you know, it starts and it's this dialogue. It's a dialogue with people, like the channelers, like asking questions and
back and forth, question Q&A.
Yeah, and they insist on this question and answer format where they don't like lecture anything. And they're like, we're not going to answer anything unless you directly ask about it. So they're like, we're completely respecting your free will, and we're not going to like impose like anything on you. But if you ask about something, then we'll respond. And then often like the questioners will ask something and they're like, well, we can't answer that because it's going to like violate, you know, like it's going to violate like some like laws of the universe, and like, so we're not going to like go into that.
Yeah.
But they're super interesting, and it's like with everything, you know, especially with channeled stuff, it's like I take it with a grain of salt, but it really like reading them, like it really like expanded my consciousness to like seeing things from a different perspective, especially like in this broad like scales of evolution. you know, because basically like, and you have to kind of read through all the books to like get the whole picture, because it
Yeah.
comes in like pieces, and they're like, the questioners will start asking something, and it's like it goes down a trail, and then that it kind of like doesn't lead to something, and then they kind of go to something else, and like you get a picture like when you read the whole thing. And the picture that they lay out basically is that, like, you know, we're in this evolutionary process, we reincarnate, and like
Yeah.
we're all part of source, but that like there's these density levels to
Yeah.
reality, and like that there's like first density, like the first density consciousness is like elemental beings, you know, so like fire and rocks and
Yeah.
water, those kind of mineral kingdom. And then second density is like most plants and animals like on the planet. And then the third density is what we're in now, like moving into fourth density. And like another thing they don't say explicitly, but which is kind of implied, is that it sort of corresponds to the chakras, you know, so like
Yeah.
moving into fourth density is like moving into the heart. And the thing that really like was interesting to me about it was they were like, you know, the like first density experience is just, it's just like infinite, like timelessness, you know, it's like the beginning of like matter being formed. It's like you can't even measure time like in that part. And
What
then
is
like,
it, noon, as we call it?
yes, exactly. And then like, and then the second density experience is like, you know, billions of years from like evolution from single cells, like into plants and animals.
Yeah.
But then this third density experience that we're in is like only 75,000 years. It's like tiny time. It's like, seems like
Yeah.
really long, like in our history, but it's like a tiny
Yeah.
time, like in the history of the universe.
Exactly.
Like they're like the point of this part of reality is that we're coming into like our conscious awareness of self, and like in that there has to be this like, or part of what's become a design in the universe, and the way they describe it is that it's like okay, all there's like the logos, which is like the basically the creative force of like
Wow.
the
Yeah.
consciousness, and the logos is like then emanated throughout like all the stars. So they're basically like every star is like a conscious being that's like radiating the evolutionary design plan for that solar system. They're like the evolutionary plan on Earth is like being generated by our sun, you know, which is then connected into the
Yeah.
galactic center, which is then connected into the universal center.
Mm-hmm.
But then, you know, they were saying that like there's like a design in it that we have to go into this like veil of consciousness where we forget, where we like lose a connection to like our memory of what we are, and like our sense of like being connected to the source. And that it's like going into that, and then from that blindness making a choice, and it's like this choice of like of whether you're going to be an evil sorcerer or whether you're going to be a good sorcerer, you know. It's like, are you going to step into the heart and be in connection? Are you going to be in service to life, or are you going to try to subjugate life and do this like power over like maneuvering? And it's like, and then they're like the entire rest of the creation hinges on that choice.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then the entire rest of evolution afterwards, you know, into the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh densities, it's like these eons of like billions of years, and it's like all processing just this part of like this third density experience.
Again, I'm gonna say, for most of y'all people to listen what he just said, like it might sound like mumbo jumbo, it might sound like
Yeah,
crazy, just jibber jabber. But
yeah,
every word he said, I'm with him 100%, and I saw it on a subatomic level. And I'm being so serious. And there's a
mm,
lot of y'all out there that know exactly what I'm talking about. But that's literally what he's explaining is the day and time we are here now. We're no
mm,
longer in the dark ages. We are
mm,
in the information age in which all the ones that want to evolve and go to the next level, it's here for it. And we're in a situation in which these great master teachers information will come to the forefront to educate us all to get us to this level, you know what I'm saying? So
yeah, yeah.
man,
I'll just
I'm
say
gonna
one.
honestly go ahead.
I want to say one more thing about that too, which is just also that, you know, according to Ra, it's like we're right at the cusp of the end of this third
Mm-hmm.
density period. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's like, because of that, there's all these beings coming from different parts of the universe here to like
Mm-hmm.
get to like be a part of that like threshold crossing, you know.
Exactly.
And so it's like all these different like energies like coming into play like all at once, you know.
Energies and entities.
And,
Energies and entities. You
yeah,
know what I'm
exactly. And
saying?
like you said, you know, it's a myth. It's a myth in the sense that it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know if that's like literally true, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
reading those books expanded my consciousness in a really powerful way. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's what I care
Yep.
about.
Yep. Yeah. It's we are going to see, very interesting things that we have not seen before, and they've already started. You just need to, if you open your eyes and, if you're an investigator like some of us, you already see these things happen with the earth. But, we're in a whole different day and time. That's why you see all these distractions. That's why, turn off the boob tube and get
That's
into
right.
self.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Pick your sources of information. You know what I'm saying? Pick them, you know, um, with some type of insight. Just don't turn it on and believe it. You know what I'm saying? Because those days are done.
Yep.
It's a wrap. You know what I'm saying? It's some of my good elders are saying that, they as soon as dealing with the ET aspect, and maybe we can even build on that next time we talk on the extraterrestrial tip. You know, what I'm saying the ETs that were running this whole thing, they dipped, they had to go, they were kicked out, so they don't have the same type of control that they had over people anymore.
Yeah.
So these people are scrambling to do things. Oh, we gotta tell everybody to do heebie-jeebies, and we gotta do this.
Yeah. It's
And
very panicky. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Wizard of Oz. Watch the Wizard of Oz. Watch the ending of the Wizard of Oz. You know what I'm
Uh-huh.
saying?
Yep. Yep. That's right.
But that's it, man. You know what I'm saying? That's it on my end. It
Great.
was a wonderful conversation, man. I'm looking forward to the next thing. The next documentary you got coming out. And
Awesome.
we're gonna, I'm definitely, if you down, man, I'm definitely gonna have, round two, three, four, five, six
Oh,
down
I
the
love
line. You know what I'm saying? And,
that.
we're
So
gonna keep on informing the folks, man. And, that's all we can do.
so down. So down. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Before we sign off, I just wanted to say, like, I didn't mention my martial arts teacher. His name is Luhan Matus, and
Okay.
his website is parallelperception.com. And
You want to put
yeah.
it in the chat real quick so we got it documented? You put it, yeah, just either, yeah, put it in the chat right there. That way, I'll pull it up and we'll have it documented. And then when people can come back to it, they can, see it on the joint, because that's a that's a key thing to show your master teacher, show him
Yeah.
love. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
And I already know. Okay, there we go. Let me get that.
Go.
Put it in here. I'm covered. Hold on. Put up here for a hot second so that people can really get to see it. And okay, there you
All right.
go. Y'all
There,
see that, right?
Luhan Matus. Yeah. Check him out.
Yep.
That's
Y'all
another.
see that? Check them out.
Want to learn about sorcery powers? Go to that website.
There you go.
There
That's
we go.
it. That's awesome, man. That's the bomb. Well, brother, this was a great conversation. You know what I'm saying? I can't say anything more, man. You know what I'm saying? It's just I'm gonna keep on going down the rabbit hole myself
Do it.
on the
Yeah. Me
on the cyber selling tip. You know what I'm saying? And even when I'm on, you are definitely a cat that I'm gonna talk to after I come back from my journey, man. That's real talk. Because
Awesome.
there's only I got a couple handfuls of individual I can even talk to on a real tip that can connect with that because they've been there. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
there's a I'm hey man, source, universe connected us, man, and you good peoples, man, and I appreciate you, man. I appreciate everything you did, man. Keep on spreading the word.
Yeah. You too. Thanks, my brozo. It's been
All
real.
right.
Yeah. Really appreciate you.
All right, man. Y'all be good out there. You know what I'm saying? Please follow, like, and share this video, because I think this video really is this information we just shared, it needs to be heard. So
That's right.
again, if y'all haven't already, go ahead, go to my website, Polka Dot Rabbit Podcast. Pick up my book. You know what I'm saying? And besides that, I'm out.
All right.
All right.
Peace.
All right. Peace. Don't hang up though.
Okay.
Don't hang up on your end.
All right.
Yeah. Let me see. Let me go ahead and broadcast.